If you're an art lover and would like to start or build your very own art collection, well, you're going to find out how to do that on today's show. Hello, I'm Shannon Skinner, and you are watching Extraordinary Women TV. My first guest today is Christine Platt. She is the founder of artVenture, which is a new art club based in Toronto. Later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top success tip. You'll hear Christine's. In the second half of the show, we'll be talking about how to get ahead and thrive in a male-dominated industry in business, so you're not going to want to miss this one. Christine Platt, hello. It's nice to have you here in the studio.
Hi, thank you to be here.
Thank you to be here.
Thank you for having me here.
It's a combination of me and you there together, I think, or you and I. Well, we really blew that, didn't we? Now, you are the founder of artVenture.
Yes, I am.
And it's a new art club for new and emerging art collectors and patrons based in Toronto. And it's an organization that has really caught my attention. And your career, you know, what has gotten you to this place of launching this organization is something that I think is fascinating. I mean, you've lived around the world.
I've lived in a few places, yes.
You know, you studied at Cambridge, Queen's, and then Cambridge. You're Canadian-born, moved to Beijing, lived in Beijing for some time, Amsterdam, and then you came here. But what took you to China? And what a great place to live. I mean, that must have been a great experience. But, you know, what got you there to begin with?
Well, really, it started in my undergraduate degree when I was particularly looking at Chinese history, and I thought I wanted to go to Cambridge and study Chinese economics. And part of that degree, there was 1 year in Cambridge and 1 year in Beijing. And when I went to Beijing, I realized while economics was a great subject to learn for very pragmatic reasons, I was falling in love with the art there. They have this burgeoning contemporary art scene with a lot of different types of art happening, a combination of East and West in their practice, and I was really enjoying myself learning about it. And through that, I was also learning the language, and I had the opportunity to do some interviews with women artists while I was there.
And this of course stems from your studies at Cambridge, which was Chinese studies.
That's right, yes.
So you interviewed some fantastic artists, women artists. What did you discover? I mean, what are the similarities and or differences from female artists, you know, in China versus, let's just say, the Western world or Canada specifically? Right.
Well, as far as contemporary art goes in China, things really started happening in the 80s. So that was much later, actually, than what happened in North America or Europe. And they're learning at that time, they're just coming back into relationship with other countries in the world. They're just opening up again after being under Mao Zedong. And so they're slowly getting information about art from the outside world. And they're starting to combine that with their more traditional practices and reflect on their society. Now, not only is it a later situation, there's the combination of two cultures happening, but the position of women in particular is very different in China because they have this whole culture, a very patriarchal culture, more than what we have in the West, arguably, that is sustained there. And so the women are in a much more trying situation, let's say, than they are over here. The obstacles they have to overcome in order to be shown in galleries, in order to be taken seriously, are much higher. But there's also a generational divide. So it's the older women who, the ones who started in the 80s, who really have the most difficult obstacles to overcome and to enter the sort of canon of contemporary Chinese artists. Whereas the younger artists are excited and feel like the world is their oyster, and they have the opportunity to overcome with perhaps what their older sisters had to go through.
Of course, this has a lot to do with the political situation in China, and you know, you sort of, but before we started the show, you gave me some insight, and I mean, what is it like for if you compare, the Chinese women and contemporary artists in Canada, what's the similarities?
I think one of the similarities is you find a lot of female artists are working on a much more personal level to, even if they're commenting on wider society in their art, they do it much more through their personal experiences compared with, for instance, male artists. They also, both in China and in Canada, tend to use more sort of tactile materials and create a lot of artworks on a smaller scale, actually, again, going to the more personal level of things.
Right.
So that's very consistent in both communities.
And in the Orient, I mean, their art is ancient. Textiles has been huge.
That's true.
Right? They've got a long history of textile art, whereas here we don't. Maybe not. Well, of course, we haven't been around as much as China, but we haven't really worked as much with textiles in such a beautiful way as Chinese artists have.
That's true to some extent, although the interesting thing is in the past in China, the textile art was not a part of the fine arts community. It was not high art. Now it is being accepted as high art because of the way they're using their textiles to comment on society versus making something very beautiful and decorative. So there has been a progression in China and in the East compared to what they were in the past.
So you, from Beijing, you went on to Amsterdam. What took you to Amsterdam? I have to know. It's a great city.
It is a great city. It's a great city for museums in particular. And I wanted to, once I knew I was in love with art so much, I wanted to learn about working in museums and in sort of the art and cultural sector. So part of it was the allure of Amsterdam that has a great history with art. And I'll be honest, another part was I fell in love with someone while I was at Cambridge, and he was there, and he went to Beijing for me, and I said, okay, I can go to Amsterdam for you.
Love it.
Yeah.
And then you got married?
We did, yes.
So then you found yourself in Toronto, and this is, obviously where you've launched artVentures. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about what artVentures is, and what was the impetus to get this off the ground? I mean, did you see that there was a need, a gap?
Yes, indeed. Actually, it was already sort of in my mind before we came here. I had worked at a company called DSK in Amsterdam, where I learned about the art market because that company was set up to help emerging artists and emerging collectors in a very different format than what artVentures is. But it gave me an insight into how important collectors are in creating a buoyant market and in becoming patrons of the arts. So it was already something in my mind, an idea that maybe could be bigger another day. And then I came to Toronto looking for work in the museum field, as well as looking at the local galleries, because my husband and I are also private collectors of art ourselves. And what I noticed was there were a lot of great clubs in Toronto for people interested in contemporary art, but it would seem when I talked to people, none of them particularly focused on collecting art. They were more art historical, or just enjoying what's in the local community, their patronage clubs in particular, but none of them were for collecting art. And so I thought, well, there's a potential niche market. I also thought all of the clubs seem to be age-based here in Toronto. So there's a lot of, for instance, once you hit 40 years old, you're out of the Young Patrons Club. But then you go to the next club and there seems to be a gap that the people between 40 and 60, let's say, aren't there. They're 60 and up in the other club. So I thought, okay, maybe there's a need for a club for people of all ages who are interested in collecting. And then the sort of final aspect that really hooked me was back to the importance of creating a burgeoning art market. I saw a lot of potential in the Toronto market because there are great artists here. There's some great institutions, but the funding in Toronto, in Canada, is a combination of private and corporate patronage along with government patronage. However, those two brought together do not equal nearly as much as other Class A cities, for instance, in Europe, which are mostly government patronage, or in the US, where they're mostly private patronage. So I thought, great, I can bring new patrons in, I can enliven the market a bit, I can help these people who are clearly looking for something that will help them, facilitate them to build their own collections. So I started artVentures.
So there we go, and you've got some galleries. You already have a bunch of partners on board. I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about what people can expect if, you know, if they wanted to become members. I mean, what do they get? How does it work?
Sure. So it's a $500 annual membership fee. And what you get with that is many things. First of all, there are social learning events, I call them. You get 8 of those in your membership year. And they're all very intimate. There's no more than 20 people at any event, so that you really get the opportunity to meet artists or curators or other collectors, important collectors in the community, and have a real conversation with them. And they're very educational events. So it might be going to a bank, seeing their collection, and having someone there talk to you about art as an investment and what you need to do as far as taxes go, and how you can make a big return on art, things of that nature.
Of course, you can make money off having an art collection. A lot of people, you know, don't think about that.
That's very true. And
it can be a very good investment.
It's much like a house, I would say, in the sense that it's the kind of investment that you make, and it's more long-term than other investments. However, you get to enjoy it the whole time that it's in your hands. So you have these social learning events, and I also do private consultation with you and kind of create a profile of who you are, what you want to collect, what your expectations and desires are as far as your involvement in the art world. And then throughout the rest of the year, I'm going to tailor anything I find to that profile. So for instance, I go to an art show and I see a really interesting artwork that I think fits with, you know, Sarah's membership profile. I'm going to call Sarah and say, would you like me to set up a meeting with the artist so you can have a chat, look at the studio, see if this is something you really want. I think it works in your collection. So there's this very private, intimate, tailored aspect to the club. And then the final sort of element is working with the non-profit and commercial galleries. So I have 4 commercial galleries who've been very supportive so far, and that's Katzman Kamen, Contemporary Diaz, Stephen Bolger, and Birch Librelato. And they're giving my members 5% discounts on all of their purchases. They're also doing mini consultations anytime you make a purchase. And they're giving their space up for certain events, as well as helping to make introductions. And you're invited to all of their events out with the artVentures program. And then there are 2 public galleries. It's Mercer Union and Gendai. And again, they're there to help make introductions, to give the space for our events, to invite you to their events, and to talk about the benefits of being a patron for yourself personally, financially, and socially. So that's the way it works.
Well, you know, it sounds like such an interesting and enjoyable club. I mean, what a great way to learn more about art and appreciate it more, and have a social aspect where you can connect with other like-minded people who appreciate art. So right now, the galleries, you're mostly based in Toronto.
Yes.
Yeah. And so for people who wanted to find out more about artVentures, they can go to your website at, and I know it's new, it's not a new website, it's under construction, artventuretoronto.com.
That's
the URL, right? Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about artVentures. But in the meantime, it's my Good to Know Minute, and I know, Christine, you've got a great tip, so jump right in there.
So my tip for you is to use your support network. They're there to help you. They want to share in your success, and you're not alone. And so embrace that. Embrace your support network.
Well, thanks for that, and that's good to know. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Christine Platt, founder of artVentures. So stay where you are. Welcome back to the show. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Christine Platt, who is the founder of artVenture, a new contemporary art club based in Toronto, and really kind of a first of its kind here.
Yeah, it is, and I'm hoping that it's going to fill those gaps I talked about, and that people are, enjoying it and getting a lot from it.
So, Christine, if someone outside of your club, let's say, maybe they don't have access to the club, maybe they live on the other side of the country, or they're somewhere else in the world, they're watching the show. I mean, what are 3 tips that you can offer, share with people to, if they want to start their own art collection? What can they do? What's important for them?
Well, I think the first thing, which is paramount, whether you're starting it from scratch right now or you're already a little bit into it, is research. Research as much as you can.
Yeah.
And that means reading about art and about the art world, both historically and contemporary. There are lots of great resources for free online, magazines, Canadian Art, the Art newspaper, all kinds of places. But it also means going in person to galleries and museums, seeing their exhibitions, going to their openings. And again, there are lots of ways to do that and lots of resources online in different countries that tell you when exhibitions or openings are on. Here in Toronto area, it's a Kim blog. You go on a Kim blog, they send you an email, and you know when the next exhibition is. So, research.
Research. Okay, great. Got it.
The second one is to explore your options.
Okay.
When you're starting to purchase art, there are a lot of different ways you can do it, and you can do it at many different levels. So, for instance, go to multiple galleries. Don't just buy from one, because they all have something different to offer. Ask them questions. If you don't want to outlay your money all at once, a lot of them will do payment plans over 6 months to a year. If you're not sure about an artwork yet, you like it, or maybe there's a couple you're trying to choose between on this particular occasion, ask if you can loan it out for a week. There are a lot of art galleries that are willing to do that. So explore all your options, ask a lot of questions. And then the third and probably the most important tip is to buy only what you love. It's great to look things up, to do your research and find out that this artist or that artist is a rising star, and you might make a great financial return on something, but the market is fickle, it can change, and then you're stuck with an artwork you don't love. Whereas if you choose an artist whose work you love and who has potential as well, I mean, there's no harm in doing both of those things, then regardless how the market goes, you have a piece that you love that you're going to enjoy. And building an art collection, in my opinion, is not just about financial return anyways. It's about enjoying the artwork, being inspired by it.
For what it is.
For what it is.
I have art on my walls at home that I absolutely love, and I've had some of the paintings that I now have for many years, probably 12, 13 years. And every day I look at some of these paintings and I still love them as much as I did when I first got them.
That's fantastic.
And then every once in a while I think, well, maybe it's time for something new and something refreshing, but I look at them and I think, no, I really still love these paintings in this room. They're perfect. The energy is great. The colors are wonderful, and it just works for me. So I can completely understand what you mean by buy what you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is when you have an art collection, and it is something, as I said, that sort of you should build it over time and enjoy it over many years.
Yeah.
Those artworks that you love, you can love them for different reasons. As your life changes, what you once loved for one reason might change. But the point is you have a memory with it, and it's great if it does change, because that makes it exciting.
Yeah, sure. Now, you have an extensive art collection yourself.
Yes.
What's in your collection?
My husband and I collect a number of artists. They're all contemporary artists, not from any one particular place in the world or any one genre.
And I know we've got a couple of images, so we'll bring them up now if we can.
So one of my favorite new artists since I came to Canada is Véronique Laperrière. and she's a fantastic artist.
Oh, look at this.
Who uses charcoal or pastels to draw, so very technically good at drawing. But she also is an anthropologist, and she does a lot of research ahead. And so the particular works that you've just seen, she went to the Haida Island on the west coast and talked with the native people there and got an idea of their cosmology. And that's what she's put together in this. She's put together the Haida cosmology along with Western cosmologies. You see the two heads, so the heads of Janus, and it's all about sort of creation and destruction. So my husband and I found that very beautiful. For us, an artwork needs to be aesthetically pleasing, but also needs to be layered and have an element of intellectual stimulation. Another artist we have quite a few works from is Easy Kunat. She's a German artist, and she does photography. She does a lot of textile work on top. So I think you have an artwork.
Do we have another piece here? Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
This is it?
This is it. And
look at this.
And so this is a photograph of herself, and she actually has embroidered the animal hair on her hands and her feet. So she's always putting other sort of textiles or elements like that onto the work.
Right.
And this one's called Against the Forest Laws. So very much it's got a mask, and it's commenting on humanity and sort of us pretending to be more than animals, and she's saying, you know, there's a primitive nature to us as well that we shouldn't always hide. But
so do you, in terms of your collection, do you have all of your collection out in your home, or do you put some of your collection in storage or somewhere else for a period of time, and sort of switch different parts of your collection? Or for you, how does it work personally?
For us, we prefer to put as much on display as we can. We enjoy being with art because I travel so much. My art has sort of become the thing that makes a new place feel like home. So we're sort of, in art historical terms, in the Russian style. We have art just everywhere around our house. But certainly there are other collectors who put elements of their collection in storage and rotate or things like that. The one thing we don't constantly have on display is our media works. We have some video works, and occasionally we'll take something out and put it on the projector with their friends around, or if we just feel like watching it. But yeah, for us, we want to see as much of it as possible.
Now, is there a Canadian company or a family that is, in particular, in your mind, the king or queen of patron of the arts here? And maybe they're the best kept secret because they keep it quiet?
I don't really have an answer to that, if there's one that's the best kept secret as of yet. There are some private collectors that will be bringing our members to see, but the big ones in Canada generally make themselves known. I mean, if you go to the AGO, each gallery is named after basically all the big collectors.
Names are on the plaques somewhere.
Exactly.
You know, there are some people, tourists recently who've commented to me, coming to Toronto, that they think some of our city is actually boring because we don't really have enough museums. And of course, this is a big part of your background. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, coming from Amsterdam, Beijing.
Well, Amsterdam and Beijing, I mean, they're both places that have a plenitude of museums right now. And I'll be honest, when I first got to Toronto, I did kind of feel like, okay, where is everything?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it's hidden. It's hidden in buildings that you wouldn't quite expect to be galleries or museums. And once you're in the know and you go in, there's all of a sudden a lot more here than at face value. With that said, I do think Toronto could benefit from having even more culture and arts on display for people to enjoy. But there is more here than meets the eye.
Do you have a favorite museum here in Toronto?
I do, and it's fairly well known, I would say, at least in the art community. It's MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Canadian Art.
Okay.
It's not a huge institution, but they do excellent exhibitions with both Canadian art and international art. And I love the mediation that they do there. It's really fantastic.
So Christine, just circling back now to artVentures, what is your long-term vision? I mean, where would you love for this to go?
For me, there's a few levels to that. The first is I really want to give my members to help them upgrade their financial capital, their social capital, and their cultural capital. And the big vision with that is that as they upgrade their own capitals, they will help other people in the community do the same. So to me, the more people I have collecting art, the more buoyant the art market is, which is great for the city of Toronto and its people from an economic standpoint. As well as the variety of perspectives that are coming into the market. It's exciting to have a lot of choice. Then on the social side, that people are building wider networks, and a lot of the people coming into the club are not typical art collectors with backgrounds in art history, for instance. They're engineers, they're bankers, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're people who work at the post office. Anyone can collect art if they really want to, and artVentures can facilitate that. And then at some point, if we're encouraging them enough to loan their artworks to museums, to be patrons of public projects, then that's reaching the wider public as well and giving them an education in art, inspiring them. So yeah, I guess my vision is to just really sort of this pay it forward scheme, that it goes from my group and continues to grow outwards for the city of Toronto and the people who live here. Are
you finding, as you build this organization, are doors opening, or are you finding it challenging? Because as you mentioned earlier, arts funding in Canada is
relatively limited.
Relatively limited. It's a good way of putting it. But how has that impacted you?
I have to say, because it's set up so that I'm not getting any public funding at the moment, and I am working with individuals in the galleries, people have been very enthusiastic. Every gallery I've asked so far has said yes to be a part of it, which is great.
That's great.
Which means that, to me it means that people really want something like this, and they're ready for it, and they're willing to invest in it themselves.
And obviously there's a gap, there's a need. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Christine, I wish you all the best with this organization, and I'll be watching it, and I would love to become a member myself and learn more about contemporary art through it and collecting, and maybe one day I'll be a patron too.
Fantastic.
I've got that on my to-do list.
Fantastic. I welcome you.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you are going to find out what it takes to not only be successful, but to thrive in a male-dominated industry. So stay where you are. And of course, for more information about Christine Platt, my guest, and artVentures, you can visit the website at artventuretoronto.com. You can find out more about her on my website at extraordinarywomentv.com. And again, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, you're going to find out how to thrive in a male-dominated industry. So stay where you are.